So guys, welcome to another Quickybaby video. Today I'm going to be discussing what's just been released on the public test realm, the new Russian heavy line in the 7.3 update. I'm going to give you my rundown on each of the tanks and tell you how I think they'll compete with the other tanks around it. So without further ado, let's get started. So guys, we're looking at the KV replacement here, the KV1. So what's really different about it? Let's make this as clear as possible. The turret, you can no longer fit the KV2 turret on the Tier 5 KV1. However, the KV1 turret replacement is better, it's more well armoured, and it's got a slightly better transverse with a moderate view range buff. What guns can you mount on this? You can mount a mini derp with a good rate of fire, good average damage, but less penetration than the original KV derps. It'll be less effective. Or you can mount an 88 with respectable sniper stats. So for all you people who love the derp on the original KV, fear not. You've got a replacement, but now you'll have to play at Tier 6. So to compensate for this, you've got a health buff. The turret is slightly faster at turning by 3 degrees a second, which might make a significant difference, and the view range is significantly increased from 306 to 330. This will help you. The guns you can mount the original 107, which was brilliant, and you can mount the 152, which very interestingly has got a rate of fire buff, as well as, can be seen here, an accuracy buff, which is fantastic for all you KV derpers. Now your position in the tree, the KV2, even though it's situated in the Tier 5 line, is, as we can clearly see here, a Tier 6 tank, and it will be matched up like one. And the original KV has been replaced by the KV1, which is at Tier 5. My opinion on this is that this new KV will be a more balanced tank. It will still be one of the better Tier 5 tanks out there. And with the new matchmaker, it will no longer meet such high-end tanks, as its tier has been dropped to 1 from the top. I think this is great. The original KV with the KV2 turret, when it was Tier 5, was immensely powerful, and there was nothing that could really compete with it at Tier 5, apart from maybe, say, like a Panzer IV or an equal TD from range. But if the KV driver knew what he was doing, he could pretty much decimate you. It was only poor KV drivers which you could take advantage of. So I think its new position at Tier 6 with more health and with a slightly improved derp will make it even better at taking on the higher tier tanks that it will get matched up with at Tier 6. As we know, KV3s can get matched up against Tier 10s. So unless their matchmaker changes, the KV2 will be meeting those as well. So Tier 10 tanks, be prepared, you're gonna face some derp targets. So now we're looking at the KV3, which is at Tier 7 now. It's been moved from Tier 6. So visually, very much the same. We can see that it's got significantly increased hit points at 1,300. And with its increase in tier, we can see that it's got new guns available to it. It's got the best IS-7 gun from 7.2 available, which has got a very good rate of fire for a Tier 7 tank. Its turret is unchanged. So its engine, this is a significant change. We can see that it's got a 250 brake horsepower increase, while the weight remains the same. So the maneuverability of the KV3 should be significantly increased. And once you get your hand on it, you'll be able to see what you think for yourself about its maneuverability. I think that it should be one of the most maneuverable Tier 7 tanks now in a straight line. When we think about how good will it be, I think it should be fairly competitive at Tier 7. You've got to compare it with a T29, and we'll see once it goes to release if there are any changes that are made, or how competitive it will be. So guys, we have got 2 new French premium tanks. We've got this Pack 40, which is very similar to the Marder tank. When we compare this gun with the Marder's gun, we find out that it has improved rate of fire. Its DPS goes up ever so slightly, even though its initial alpha damage is down. and its penetration is less than the Marder. However, it's got improved accuracy, 0.37 compared to 0.43 of the Marder, and its aim time is slightly improved as well. And this being premium, it should effectively earn double the credits that a Marder does. So, what has it sacrificed coming to premium? It has sacrificed maneuverability. Its horsepower per ton ratio is halved, and its top speed is 24 rather than 40, and we find that its transverse speed is slightly reduced. This will be a very interesting tank. It'll have the most DPS compared to the Marder, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this changes Tier 3 game mechanics. So, Tier 4 Premium SPG. This is the first premium SPG in the game, and it's also the first French SPG in the game. So what does this mean? How does it compare? Well, I'm going to compare it initially to the Grill. We find that it's 4 times heavier than the Grill. However, its engine is only twice as powerful. Thus, a rough estimate is that it's going to have horsepower to ton ratio of under half of what the Grill has, and its top speed is 7 kilometers an hour slower. Its transverse speed is the same. However, its rate of fire will be significantly higher than a Grill's with the top gun, although its damage is only a third less of what the Grill has. So effectively what we find is this tank will have 15% more damage over time than what a Grill will have, and it also has the ability to load armor penetrating shells for credits rather than gold. I have to do some more testing on this tank, but what I found is that it's going to be a real bane to low tier tanks and we'll have to see how the matchmaker affects it and what its matchups are going to be. So those are the first 2 French premium tanks in the game, and also the first French SPG and the first French TD in the game. If you thought that they might have autoloaders, well, they don't. There's nothing really special about these tanks, apart from the fact that they are premium and that they are French. So now I'm going to talk about the new Russian Tier 9 tanks, and also the changes that have been made to the IS-4 at Tier 10, and also to the KV-4, which is a new tank at Tier 8, in the new heavy Russian tree, rather than the, in my opinion, medium heavy Russian tree. So firstly, let's look at the KV-4, which can be found here. It's a huge tank, absolutely huge, with a massive gun on the front, although the caliber of it at the top gun is not very high. It gets a 107, which is vastly improved, has great penetration for a Tier 8 tank, fairly good accuracy, and average aim time with a decent rate of fire. What we're going to find is that is a serious new gun to contend with at Tier 8. So the KV-4 is very heavy. We can see here it's over 100 tons, and it gets a very powerful engine at 1,200 to allow it to have a chance to reach its top speed, which is a massive 50 kilometers an hour currently in the test. Although its transfer speed is very low, it has huge frontal armor for its tier, and good side armor, and mediocre rear armor. Now, if anyone's thinking what I'm thinking, 1,200 engine power, heavy tank, high speed limit, great frontal armor. Well, we might see some very funny videos of people getting huge ram damages off down hills with these tanks, and that's what I'm looking forward to. My opinion with how this will compete with a Tiger II and a T-32, or even an IS-3, is that it's going to be slower, at least when it's not going downhill. We find that its horsepower to ton ratio is the lowest of any of the Tier 8 heavy tanks, even though it's got this huge engine. although its top speed now is the highest by 12 kilometers an hour, higher than the IS-3. So downhill this thing is going to be a beast. However, it's going to be very slow uphill, and with its low transverse, it's going to be a pain to maneuver it. So what's new at Tier 9? Two new tanks, the ST-1 and the IS-8. Let's quickly look at their initial stats here. Similar health points, similar weights, with the IS-8 being slightly lighter than the ST-1. I've worked out their horsepower per ton ratio, and it is the ST-1 gets 12.12 horsepower per ton, while the IS-8 gets nearly 15 horsepower per ton. What this does is it places the IS-8 in between the M103 and E75 for pure acceleration, whereas the ST-1 will be slightly slower acceleration than the E75. Both these tanks will have great top speeds, with the ST-1 having 40 kilometers an hour, similar to the KV-4 having that mediocre engine but still having a very great top speed. Whereas the IS-8 will have 50 kilometers an hour and be fairly maneuverable with it. It will be a very interesting tank to play, for the main reason that these Russian tanks get this new 122mm M62 T2 gun, which is used on the IS-4, the ST-1 and the IS-8. What's very interesting about this gun is it's got huge credit penetration. It's got even better gold penetration if you play Clan Wars, while still maintaining a decent alpha damage with a reasonable accuracy of 0.38. Its aim time is going to be 2.9 to 3.4, depending on what tank you mount it on. And really, this is going to be a stellar gun for its tier at Tier 9, and still a very good gun for the IS-4 at Tier 10. I think these two Tier 9 tanks are ones to watch, and we'll see how they play as we rack up some more game time. So, now the new daddy of the Russian heavy tanks, the IS-4. How has it been changed? We can see immediately the hit points up to 2,400. Its engine power, when you consider weight to engine power, is slightly improved, while it's got a better top speed and a reasonable transverse, with currently the same armor stats as it had. What's going to be interesting about the IS-4 is Wargaming have made hints that they're going to improve the weak spot, the driver's hatch on the front of the tank, and if the IS-4 is to compete at Tier 10, this is something that's going to make or break the tank, in my opinion, at least in random play, because in Clan Wars the kind of penetration you get from gold doesn't really matter. I think this tank is going to compete very well at Tier 10, and when we compare its overall damage over time, we find that this gets 36.67 damage per second, which is higher than the IS-7, higher than the Mouse, slightly lower than the E100, and lower than the T110. So we're going to have to hope that the IS-4's greater top speed or its armor is going to make it more competitive with the T110. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed my review of the 7.3 patch, and good luck getting your KV with the KV2 turret, your KV3 and your IS-4, so you can get free tanks when it rolls out, hopefully by the end of the month. So if you've enjoyed this review and it's helped you out, please give it a like, and subscribe if you want to see more gameplay footage that I regularly post. Thank you very much, and good luck guys.